guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon, and a very, very warm welcome to all of you. Particular warm welcome to all of our friends watching online. We had a great audience online out there, so we're thrilled that they're all with us, and we're thrilled actually that because of technology we can actually bring this to you here in person and indeed to everybody at home or wherever they are today. Now, we have a wonderful session. Did you ever get the feeling, come on, be really honest about this, that you were maybe occasionally, only obviously, every now and then, surrounded by total idiots? Anybody? Okay, so at least we're in the right room and everybody knows what we're going to be talking about. So this is a really good start. And it turns out you're not the only one who feels like this. Now, let me actually invite here to us, to our panel, a cartoonist and an author and science editor, Sherif Arafa. Please, Sherif, you come join us. Sherif is an author. He has written several books in Arabic. Now, usually I'm very, very proud to be able to say I've read the books. This time round, I'm beyond ashamed. So, but he's very kindly talking me through some of them. And we've had a great chat, and his English is wonderful, and his thought process in English is superior. So
thank you so much.
I'm going to have to get round.
Don't give them high expectations because
no, we got to keep those expectations high. So Sherif has a great background, you know, also as a self-development, more psychologist in a way you approach it.
Positive psychology, exactly.
Positive psychology, and he's an author and he's a cartoonist. So let's you and I sit down here, and also we're absolutely delighted to be able to welcome, joining us from Sweden, a lecturer and behavioral scientist and author, Thomas Erikson. Thomas, great to see you, Thomas.
Hi there. Hi, Eithne, and hi, Sherif. Nice to meet you, and nice to meet all the rest of you in the room, which I cannot see, but I hear you.
But everybody's got their eyes on you, and we've got a huge big screen here. You're looking fabulous, and you're sounding great, and we have a wonderful audience here in the room with us, but we also have a wonderful audience actually logged in online. So we're thrilled that we've been able to bring both. Now, Thomas, of course, many of you might have read his books, might have read about him. The internet is abuzz about him. Lots of people talking about what he talks about. He's a best-selling behavior expert and who looks at this four-color system, and particularly in his book, we have it here, many of you have seen it, Surrounded by Idiots. But he gets better. He's got another one called Surrounded by Psychopaths. We'll have a little word about that one as well, because sometimes I think he puts them both together. And he's working on one which might hit home for some people as well in the professional life. He's working on books about surrounded by maybe strange bosses that might fit into the idiot or the psychopath category, who knows. So anyway, but Thomas, let me talk and start with you, if I may. Just very quickly, my name is Eithne Treanor. I'm going to be here with you for this session. And our sponsor for this session is the Investment Corporation of Dubai and the Dubai Department of Tourism and Commerce Marketing. So as always, it's just so exciting to welcome you to this session of the Emirates Airline Festival of Literature. And so Thomas, it's a pity we don't have you in person, but never mind. Let's get down to business. Why do you think that people get absolutely sort of, intolerant, exasperated, and really look around and think, why is everybody around me an idiot?
Oh, wow, how much time do we have? Well, seriously, I think it is because usually, and we all do that, we use ourselves as the starting point. I am always the one who I will compare my thoughts with. I mean, I do what I do because I think that's the correct way to do things. If I thought it was bad, I would do it in another way, and everybody else is obviously the idiot. I actually had an interesting, let's call it a definition of idiots when I was really young. It was easy for me to say because everybody who agreed with me and my opinions, they were the good people, and those who disagreed were obviously idiots. So it's an easy definition, I would say. Yeah.
Unfortunately, I think that definition is probably still with many people. We'll talk a little bit more in detail, but I want to bring Sherif in here. You have written a book that also talks about idiots.
Exactly.
Also just explores that, perhaps in a different way. And I'm going to talk more with Thomas in terms of how he has really structured out who's who and what we need to do to understand them. But why do you think that, when we judge perhaps other people who don't fit into our perception, who don't sometimes just, as he said, agree with us, that we actually, don't sit there and kind of say, oh, they have a different point of view, but we actually think that they might be a bit of an idiot? Why is that?
There are many reasons. In social psychology experiments, when they when they make surveys and ask people to evaluate their own performance, they found that most people evaluate themselves as above average, which is statistically impossible. Not all of us can be above average. So we overestimate our abilities, which is in cognitive psychology, they call it the fundamental attribution error. That is, when I fall into a mistake, usually I tend to believe that it happened because of an external circumstances. It wasn't my fault. The circumstances forced me to behave this way. But when I see someone else who did the same mistake, the first thing that comes to my mind, how did he do this? He's stupid, he's wrong, like what happens when you make a car accident or something. Usually the first thing that comes to your mind that this guy pressed the brake suddenly, he shouldn't do that. But if you see something in a similar situation, you will tell yourself that he should leave space between him and the car in front of him. At the same time, when we look at the multiple intelligences theory, we can obviously see that intelligence is not only one trait. You can be smart in a specific domain in life, you can be genius in mathematics or in physics, but at the same time you may lack social intelligence, for example, or emotional intelligence, and so on. So the right question from my point of view is not to say why people around me are idiots, but why I'm not able to understand their drives and motives that explains their behaviors. I'm not saying that there are no idiots out there. Of course there is, but if you look at the percentage, they are not dumb. They are not dumb. They have motives and drives that made them behave this way, which is really important for us to understand in order to be able to deal with them, even to negotiate with them, to convince them, to speak their language. So this is the first thing we have to focus on, how to understand people in order to eliminate this illusion that we are superior and we don't need to understand people.
Well, I mean, I guess that's the positive side of it and the optimistic side too, that not everybody is an idiot out there. But sadly, when I sit in judgment maybe of some people, and Thomas, when you think about it, it comes to our minds so quick if something happens, like a car stops very suddenly. We very quickly just almost say, going, what an idiot. When something happens, it's something that we associate in terms of how people's behavior. But as Sherif said there too, we need to understand them, and you have the methodology for understanding. Now, you have broken down our personality types, and not necessarily you, many people have done this. You have actually, I think, just put a special treatment on this, into the red, yellow, the green, and the blue. So let's talk us through. I purposely, I don't see you, Thomas, but I purposely didn't want to unveil my colors today, so I wore a few different colors, just the way anybody wouldn't be getting any ideas about it, and then somebody told me my boots gave it away. So what do you do? What do you do? What do you do? So, but talk to us about how you've taken the time to break down people into these different colors, and why it makes a difference.
Okay, so let's get down to business. As Sherif very well put it, people are usually not idiots. So maybe we shouldn't joke too much about this. I would agree to begin with, there are some idiots out there. But the thing is, they move around a lot. So you might sort of run into them a little bit here and a little bit there. But the thing is, it's as you just pointed out, it is about understanding. And where should you start? Well, I start with behaviors. I start with trying to understand another person's behavior, because if I can understand, let's say, the intention behind a certain act, I could maybe understand the personality that goes deeper than this. As you mentioned, I am a behaviorist. I am not a psychologist. And behaviorism is about trying to measure how people are acting, how people are behaving using different kinds of tools. And in my book, Surrounded by Idiots, just to mention very, very briefly, that it's taken up with something called the DISC method, which is spread all over the globe. So there's nothing new with it. I have not invented anything that wasn't there to begin with. It's been around for probably 40, 50 years, something like that. And what I do is I divide it into 4 colors because it's a pedagogical way to actually remember and understanding things. It's easier to remember red and yellow behavior than it is to remember high D over I with a low C, let's say. So, and the method uses basically introversion and extroversion, task orientation, and people orientation, or relation orientation, you might say. And then we get a 2x2 matrix, very simplified way of measuring behaviors. There are, of course, other methods as well, even more simplified and more complex. But I chose this because it's very well spread. It's available in, I think, in 100 countries, something. And it talks about red behaviors, the dominant types who are fast-forward thinkers, you know, very decisive, very dominant. Some people think they are aggressive even, always trying to speed up things, you know, faster, faster. We are in a hurry. Well, maybe we're not in a hurry, but we could speed up anyway because, you know, life is short. Let's get down to business, okay? And you have the yellow types, the positive ones, who are very creative and looking for the sunshine all the time, even though today here in Sweden it is snowing. Yes, and we have minus 15 degrees Celsius. And they say, and then I say, well, it is snowing here, you know. And the yellow type might say, yes, but the sun is always shining somewhere, you know. These people always positive, good with words. And then you have the green ones going to the introvert side. They are more calm, very caring, very sharing, very conflict avert. They don't like arguing and fighting with people. They don't like changes, but they are really good, let's say, team players and really good at listening. They actually hear what you say. The green people will hear what you say and they will remember what you said, especially if it was something bad. And then you have the blue ones, the analysts, the accountants, the engineers, and so on and so forth, who looks into details and facts and proofs of things. Digging, more details, more Excel sheets. Do we know this, and why is this important? Where is the analysis behind everything? So there you have sort of the basic structure, the fundamentals, let's call it. Then you can, of course, divide the colors. You can combine the colors. As you see, you commented, Eithne, you commented your colors that you are wearing today. As you can see, I have an orange handkerchief, which is a bit of a clue to my colors.
So we might fit you into that sort of red with a bit of yellow, and I don't know, there might be a little bit of green somewhere in there that is sort of, if we blend it around to come up with the, but then we have a blue suit. So wait a minute, we'll come back to you on that one. Yes, see, you've given it away as well, too. Sherif, but, you know, isn't it just wonderful and essential in many ways that we are all different? Because how dull would life be if everybody was actually the same? But at the same time, why can't we sometimes appreciate that?
Yeah, you're right. You're right. It's impossible to make all people think the same way we do. If you have a meeting that everyone is thinking the same way, you will not be creative. You will not find any new ideas. You will not invent anything new, because creativity is all about thinking different than other people. People who changed history are people who did not think like normal people or other people around them. So I totally agree. This is a phenomenon that you have to live with and take advantage of at the same time. And by the way, I'm really a big fan of Thomas' classification. Your classification is really good. It's amazing because you simplify. Some people may find like the big 5 personality traits very complicated for them, but being 4 types, this is genius. This in corporate settings, you can bring this classification into your mind to be able to categorize people around you. At the same time, the human, being a human is a very complicated thing. We have to collect all the classifications possible because there is no classification that applies to every case out there. For instance, in marriage therapy, they are big fans of gender differences, like men from Mars and women from what, Jupiter or what?
Venus,
I don't remember.
yes.
From Venus, yeah. So this classification may be useful in marriage, but it will not be useful in corporate settings. So this is why I came up with a classification that fits my frame of reference. I'm from this region. I'm trying to deal with very complicated phenomenon like extremism, like nationalism, like populism that is invading the world right now. So why are people acting this way? This is my frame. This is the classification that I made that I try to explain what's happening out there. Why are people fighting each other? So I think it's useful to collect all these classifications together to give yourself a mental tool, to bring the right tool to understand the specific situation you are facing and to understand the specific phenomenon you are trying to understand. I don't know if you have time to say
we'll
my
talk a little
classification.
bit about
Not yet.
that
Okay.
because I think regionally it's very important too, and not just regionally. When we look around the world and when we look back in history, we also look at times of great wars and why did they start and who were the leaders of these wars, and what was their problem. I think they probably shook their head time and time again and thought they were surrounded by idiots. Thomas, take us back a little bit in history when you just look and you analyze perhaps how things used to be and maybe how they are now. Have we evolved as a human race? Are we more understanding? But and possibly in some areas, possibly not. But then you look around the world at the moment, and we may not have big wars with guns and cannons going out. We have a few of them, but we have a lot of anger, and we have a lot of opposition, and we have a lot of angst going on. And some of it, we just look at what's going on even in Russia at the moment. That is a conflict of people not agreeing in one way, and how dare one not agree with the leader. So all of this is still happening. But are you hopeful that we've actually evolved as a human race?
That's a really difficult question, but still extremely important, obviously. I don't think if I knew how this went and where this is going, I would be delighted to tell you. What I think, I mean, looking back in history, why have humans started conflicts all the time? Well, that's not about behaviors. That's about the drivers, the motivators that lies sort of behind a certain act. I mean, some people are striving for power. Some people are striving for fame. Some of us want money. Some needs to learn new things, and some are looking for harmony. There's a huge variety of the reason behind certain kind of actions, I would say. And you touched upon that just now also. I mean, this let's call it not understanding the other side, the other person's point of view. You said just now, Eithne, that where are we going now? Well, information has never been easier accessed than it is now. We know the internet, we know social media and so on, and I usually, sometimes when I give public lectures, I get introduced as a communication expert, and even though that might be true, then somebody says, another communication expert. Why is everything about communication? We are communicating more than ever before, but the problem is, while that is true, using different kinds of I mean, like this, I'm on Zoom here, you're there and I am here, and we are still communicating. But the issue is not about communication, the issue is about connecting and really interacting and getting in touch with each other, so we actually can build this understanding that Sherif so well put. We need to understand the other side, the other point of view. The problem now with information flow, I would say, is that we can't even agree on what we are talking about. I mean, for instance, when it comes to, I mentioned it's snowing here in Sweden. I mean, backwards in time, I don't know, 10 years, 15 years, I could tell you it's snowing, and you could say, yes, it is. And then we can talk about, is this good or bad? Do we like snow? Well, the kids are happy. Is it good? No, we don't like snow because we can't drive our cars. It's going to be slippery on the roads and so on. But we can discuss the snow. These days, it feels more like, when I say it's snowing, and you might tell me, no, it isn't. It's not snowing, it's sunny, you know, because we can't even agree on the facts even. And then we can't agree on anything. And what's left? Conflict. That is actually a true concern that I have, that we can never understand each other as long as we don't see the other point of view. And then you have to go into, but it's hard to enter somebody else's mind, of course. That's always a challenge. But you have to try to put yourself in their shoes. And it sounds like a cliche. I might sound naive, I understand this. But still, you have to do it. If you're on the political scale, on this side or the other side, you have to try to look in the other way and see, why are they focusing on these things? Well, I am focusing on these things. We have to try, but you have to listen. You have to pay attention, you have to be there, and you have to be interested, you know. Otherwise, there's gonna be conflict down the road, and
and that word, I think, conflict. Yes. If we look back in history, and I think we look at different regions in the world too, we're all familiar with the bigger, wider picture of conflict, and we've seen it a lot. And I mean, is, you know, freedom and peace and love and harmony, is this a new concept in many ways? You know, talk to me maybe a little bit about that. What do you think?
I do believe that the human race is evolving. If we look at wars today, they cannot be compared to what was happening in the past, in the near past. One day people would gather to see in the Colosseum to see people killing each other for amusement. There was something like freak shows. People go to a circus to see people unfortunately deformed. So we cannot imagine something happening nowadays like that. Death was a daily event. People would get executed on the streets. This was a normal thing to happen. Nowadays we are not facing the same thing, and statistically speaking, there is a Harvard study compared the rate of death by killing nowadays and in the past. In the past, it was a very high percentage. They even compared it to animals eating each other. So we are evolving, okay? Although all the wars happening, all the conflicts, all the political disagreements all over the world, but at the same time, it's good that we are not satisfied with the level of evolution we reached. It's very good to look forward to develop our value system to become better. This is good by itself. But at the same time, I'm an optimist. I'm a pessimist when it comes to our psychological basic instincts. We need to tame our inner beasts. Being involved in tribal thinking, it's something instinctual. This is part of our psychological construction. So we have to evolve intentionally to train ourselves to be better and better in the future.
Now, Thomas, come back to this concept, I suppose, of conflict and actually getting rid of conflicts, if we can do that at all, but certainly easing it and coming back to what you talk about too, that understanding. I mean, if there were just red, blue, green, and yellow people, there would probably be a lot more conflict. So thankfully, many people have little bits of both. And in your book too, you actually, you know, you talk about where we can share different traits. And this is very healthy and it's very good. And hopefully it will enlighten some of us. But how does this methodology of yours, when people understand it actually, because this is something, you know, where it affects everybody, and it's probably the one area where most of us might, let's say, complain about sometimes.
Well, I mean, conflicts, when I mentioned conflicts just now, big, horrible wars start with small, tiny disagreements. That is just the way it is. And I do not predict we're going to end up in a war. I would like to say, to begin with, just to commenting what you just said there, when Sherif said, I am positive too. I think we can learn, but there are definitely forces who are thriving on conflict as well. Necessarily war, killing each other, hopefully not, but still, some people are winning when there is a conflict. And that's a really complicated psychological mess as well. But when it comes to the system I use, or you mentioned Big Five, or the point that I make is not you don't have to use this system, or it doesn't matter. Just that you pay attention and try to learn to understand other kinds of people. Use whatever system you want. That's not the point. The point is the more you understand, the less disagreements you will have. I mean, conflict per se is not a problem. I mean, arguments and maybe strong discussions on different opinions and so on and so forth, that might not be a problem itself. Sometimes that's very useful. You can actually develop an organization by having conflicts about this and that and so on. But unnecessary conflicts, when it's all about yelling and shouting and shutting people out or silencing people just because you don't like them, that's really, really bad. And to my experience, when I work with management teams, basically, and then let's call it, I color them, let's say, and then I tell them, okay, so you are the dominant type and you're the alpha in this room. That could be a man or a woman, doesn't matter. Then you have some positive guys always smiling, don't want to talk about tough things, and some people don't like to talk about disagreements and pretending everything is good, and some people get stuck in the details. When I lay it out and they understand, aha, this is how you are thinking, this is how you are processing this idea, then all of a sudden it is this aha moments. And sometimes it actually is like a CEO of a big Swedish pharma company. She said, that's an oh no moment, because now I understand I've been doing this wrong for probably 25 years. Shouldn't the CEO, let's say, responsible for 10,000 people, shouldn't she know better? Well, in this case, no, she didn't. You could replace she with he, that's not the point, but you have to consider this, because nobody can agree on anything unless you talk to each other. I mean, nobody can succeed with anything in life unless you're really good at cooperation. You need to communicate, you need to interact, you need to connect, you need to cooperate, you need to get along, to be frank. And that can be in the small, tiny details, and it can be in a bigger picture as well. I mean, when you just, if you are in an organization, let's say that you're the manager and you are sending out this message, people will listen on many frequencies at the same time. Can you design your message so you get through to everybody? That is possible, but you have to pay attention to it. You have to look into these things very, very specifically.
Indeed, just before this, I was just at another session actually talking about teams, and I don't know if Andy Fieldhouse is here. Andy is here. Hopefully he'll have something to say later, but he's working a lot with teams here, and I think he's a big fan of yours, so we might get him involved in the Q&A. I sincerely hope, Andy, can keep your mind working there. You've got to have some question for us. But again, it was all about, too, that concept, I think, of people, understanding. And if they take the time to understand, life will be better. And Sherif, I think you really look at this in terms of how we can find, contentment at work, how we can find happiness at home. But it is about the fact that we have to take that step. But then surely it's about everybody has to take this step, because there's no point me trying to understand you and then you just carrying on the way you are. Why don't you take the time to understand me?
Well, I don't have the power to change people around me. I only have the tools to change myself, to change my perspectives, to adopt a more healthy frame of reference to understand what's happening around me. And this will benefit me. If I become more understanding to people's motives, I will be more happy. I will experience less negative emotions. I will not hold grudges and feel angry all the time. Why people are stupid this way? It will make you more healthy.
But will I not feel like I'm giving away too much? I mean, I don't know. Am I the only one understanding?
This doesn't mean that I adopt the other point of view, but I understand why he is acting this way to act in a proper way. For instance, like if I'm dealing with someone with dark triad, for example, as a Machiavellian or a psychopath or something, it's useful to understand his motives in order to deal with him, not to accept what he is doing and say what he is doing is right. I can believe I can have a different belief, different thoughts, different points of view, but at least I understand what they are doing, why they are doing this, to act properly, accordingly.
And of course, that other person has to be a little bit open to let you understand. And Thomas, coming back to, again, the concept of just idiots or irritable people or even psychopaths. Psychopaths are not all, they're not going to maybe do damage. They don't all behave the same as well. But how do we get in to begin to understand who they are, how their life is, how they think differently? Not always are we allowed to actually, take that step over. What would you suggest?
Still trying to be optimistic here. Sherif, you mentioned the dark triad, which is you said Machiavellian personality, psychopathy, and narcissism, actually, the third part. And why is this connected? Well, narcissism, meaning as in the meaning of self-centeredness and egotistic personalities, very focused on themselves and looking for benefits for themselves and all the time talking about themselves and not very interested in other people. That is, I would say, a worse pandemic spreading than we are experiencing with the COVID-19 situation. And it sounds dramatic when I say this. I fully understand this. I'm not here to scare anybody, but narcissism is spreading. Some people claim, some psychologists say that even though clinical narcissists might be 1 or 2% of the population, let's say, narcissistic behavioral traits are spreading like grasshoppers. That's 15 to 20%. And more people are more and more focused on themselves, which gives us definitely a challenge when it comes to turning this whole thing around and making people listen to the other side. Still, the majority might be interested, but the key is we need to make each and every one of us interested in gaining this knowledge about other opinions or other attitudes or whatever it is, other people. We need to give people reason to do it because everybody's busy. Everybody has their hand full with this and that and work and family and career and who knows. But if you can find a reason, if you can tell people this is good for you too, because it could be this, it could be that, it could be better night sleep, it could be a better career maybe if you try to get along better with your colleagues, then you might sort of rise in the hierarchy and all these things. But just saying we have to get along, we have to agree on more things, we have to listen better, we have to understand each other. Yeah, we know this already. We've been knowing this all the time. That's not the point. The point is, why should I? I mean, who can be the heroes here, stepping forward and say, I am willing to take responsibility. I can start this process, but who are those? That's my question. Maybe we here on the podium can be 3 of them at least, and the rest of us in the room, but we need more people to think it's a good idea.
Yes. And again, when we look
I can offer some solutions for that.
Yes.
There are many advantages of abandoning being a narcissist. First of all, you will be surrounded with healthier relationships. If you are a narcissist, people who are helpful and so on will not be part of your life anymore. This is what, for example, Cialdini, the guy who wrote about the art of persuasion, how to convince people about anything, he said that if you if you use this in an unethical way for your advantage, for your like deceiving your customers, selling them bad stuff and trying to persuade them in a bad way, this has 2 disadvantages. First of all, you will not get customers' loyalty. They will not be loyal to you for the long run. Second thing, people who will work with you inside your company are people who are not morally healthy, you know. You will be surrounded by other narcissists or by other people with other dark traits, which is not healthy for you. It will be reflected negatively on your mental health. So being a narcissist will not make you happy for many reasons. If you want to be happy, and when you are a narcissist, you will be focusing on very basic needs. You will be trying to like have more money, buy nice stuff, take advantage of people to serve you in a certain way. You will not experience other kinds of happiness, like what in positive psychology describe as eudaimonic happiness. When you do random acts of kindness, for example, if you do something meaningful, if you sacrifice something for greater good, this is a deeper kind of happiness that you will not experience if you are a selfish person. So at the end, I think it will be reflected on your own mental health, to expand, to be careful about people, to help people around you. This will be reflected on you. And there is a proverb, I think, a quote by Buddha, I think. He said that happiness is like a flame. It will not go away if you light up thousands of candles. It will increase. Happiness is something like this. If you spread happiness around you, you will be surrounded by happy people who are grateful to you. You will build healthy relationships. You'll be healthy in this manner.
Please, at any time, if anybody wants to ask questions, I'm just going to come back to Thomas here, and after this, be thinking of a few questions and just let us know. We have microphones to the right, to the left, and we did have them in the middle as well, I believe. So we're taking great precautions here, so make sure if you want to come, please, you do have to come up to the microphone and just give me a wave and let me know you're coming, but just find one on the right, one on the left, and one in the middle here. So as soon as I just talk to Thomas in just a moment here, but Thomas, just stay with this point on narcissism. And again, do you find that social media perhaps is actually encouraging this? Because when you think about it, everybody is being encouraged to have their own, Instagram, to have their own channel, to actually talk about what they do, to make sure that everybody knows what they do. And you say this is a pandemic that's on the move and you're worried about it. But who has it been driven by? Has it been driven by the Reds? I think the Yellows enjoy it, the Greens enjoy it, maybe the Blues don't go near it. But they're beginning to come on board because I think they're being told they have to come on board or they'll be left behind. So is there not almost a push towards individualistic, showmanship that we're beginning to see now more than ever before?
Yes. Well, to begin with, we have MySpace, and then Facebook, show your face. YouTube's tagline was to begin with, broadcast yourself. Instagram, Insta as in instant, and similar things. Even the names on these platforms suggest that it's about you, or rather me, it's about me, and it's going to happen now. And even though I agree with everything that Sherif says about narcissism, it will not get you loved, it will get you hated. But the problem is this, that people are striving for immediate satisfaction. I mean, the attention that we get on social media, it comes like this, You get likes, you get comments, you get more followers and so on. And that happens all the time because people are going for the dopamine all the time, which gives you a quick fix, so to speak. It makes you feel good, but dopamine, which releases is it from the brain, Sherif? Maybe you can help me there. I think it comes from the brain. It affects the brain, yes, at least. Yes. When you do something positive, then you actually feel good. But it's a short-term thing because dopamine is very addictive. It's like a drug. When you get a little quick fix, you need another one and another one and another one, and on you go. But in long term, obviously, I totally agree, that's not going to help you because people will hate you. Narcissism is spreading because it's good in the short term. It's good to be a narcissist because you can get attention, you can feel valued, you can feel popular, and you can even make some money. I mean, to be honest, sometimes it can take you to the top. And some people will dislike you a lot. And then when you go away, they will tell you the truth. But as long as you are in power. But I think of course, social media is also developing us, but is it in a good way? Well, if you're not on Instagram, do you even exist anymore? That's the question we are talking about here. But still, I have friends who are quitting their social media accounts. They are taking them down for 30 days as a sort of a detox, actually.
Yes.
And I mean, hey, I passed a big 5-0 some years ago, so I was late. I'm a really slow starter when it comes to social media, and I am on there because all my advisors say you have to be there as an author, as a lecturer. You have to be there, otherwise you don't exist. But I have to say, this conversation we are having right now is so much more delightful and entertaining and interesting and everything than sitting there and tapping on your smartphone. Maybe we will see some sort of counter movement when it comes to this. People logging out and detoxing and then saying, well, I feel better than before. I actually feel so much better now. Maybe I should not restart my Facebook app. Maybe I should just stay away from it and call a friend instead, and maybe go over to his house and have a cup of tea and sit down the whole evening and talking about interesting things. I think when I say these things, I am thinking out loud now, but I think some of us have to try it at least, because I don't think this is going in the right direction.
Yes. No, and I think you're so right in terms of that connectivity. Years ago, when the phone lines weren't great, it took forever to try and get in touch with people, and you had to sometimes book calls. It's almost becoming the same again. You just can't pick up the phone and call somebody. They sometimes take, umbrage to that. You have to call them to see if it's okay to call them. You have to send them a text. Whereby I just love to get a phone call out of the blue, and I'll drop all, and actually I'll enjoy that conversation. Now, we have lots of people who do want to ask a few questions.
Try to talk on.
Please come in here. Sheriff has a comment on this, and yes, by all means, madam, immediately after this.
Okay, I have something to add.
Please.
That there is a corporate responsibility when it comes to narcissism, because I found a study that says that they found that people who have the dark triads are more successful in their careers. And another study found that that men who are less in agreeableness gain more income by 18% than agreeable men.
Right.
So this is a broken system, because the corporate will reward you when you achieve the target. They will not award you because you are kind-hearted, if you are a good person or you have manners.
Yeah.
So this should be put into consideration when we evaluate people. Okay, you achieved the target, but how did you do this? Is this good for us for the long run, or you just did something wrong just to achieve the target? Because the target should not be only sales, or
Yes.
This is not the point. The intellectual property, your image, how people perceive your company, your staff, this is also an important thing that is worthless. This is more important than money.
And I think this is changing in the corporate world, and it's becoming a little bit more holistic. But at the same time, you talk to the director of sales, and he probably has a different opinion in terms of what your offering should be and what your productivity should be, rather than the HR person.
Exactly.
So, please, madam, you have a question for us.
Yes.
For
Good
Thomas or
afternoon
Sherif, or for
first.
both?
Good afternoon first, and thank you for this lecture. I'm very satisfied. My question is, do you think that the color give us energy? Because I believe in this. When I wear something like yellow, I will be more confident and more talkable, okay, for the others. And when I wear like red, I have a power. So do you think this affect on the people, and do you want to make a book about this, how the color will affect on our lifestyle? Maybe I will go to the conference or something,
Yes.
meeting or job, and maybe you can give advices for the people, how they wear, what they will say. You have this ability to do?
Well, I think there are the fashion,
Thank you.
color me beautiful and all of that out there that talk about moods and colors. And Thomas looks like a dapper dresser out there, so, but again, is it more, if you're dressed in red, do you think you take on a red persona? Or if you're dressed in yellow, have you seen anything in that at all? Anything like that you've come across, or you've just color-coded them because it works with the DISC methodology and it seems to suit?
Well, it's actually the other way around. You're closer to the answer there. the disc methodology, color, sort of dressed in colors, is actually, I mean, red is the color of, it's actually, it's supposed to symbolize fire. Yellow is supposed to symbolize air, or actually oxygen, to be crystal clear. Green is the earth and blue is the sea. And those are called, it's Leisure's psychological colors, and it's a very long story why exactly those colors are chosen there. But colors, I don't know, as you who asked the question there, thank you so much. It's a good question. However, I don't know enough about this to give you a proper answer. What I do know is the color affects us.
Yes.
That we do know. I mean, for instance, just one really quick example, McDonald's and all the other fast food chains, they usually use red and yellow. Red because it has to go quick, get in, get out, and yellow because you have to eat much. So they symbolize and they sort of affects our behaviors in different ways. And blue are darker blue than I am wearing now is signaling trustworthiness and so on. So we know some things about this.
Yes. Sure, please.
I do believe that, please allow me to disagree, Mr. Mr. Erikson.
No problem.
Because Lucher theory is an old theory, and nowadays many attempts to replicate the test he designed the test that you prefer what are the colors are your favorite, then choose another color. They failed when you replicate it many times. People may change their answers, so it doesn't have the same eligibility to prove something. So it's not academically legitimate. The other thing, there is a Colombian researcher that I have met about. He did a study about this topic, the effect of colors and what each color represents to people. And interestingly, I found that his subjects found the color green a symbol of death. I asked him why, what's the psychological background of this? He told me that his subjects were villagers who were dealing with drug smugglers and gangs and so on, and these people hide in the forest. So when they see this color, it brings to them bad feeling. At the same time, when we see even in the Arab world, the color black we wear for grief, but in some countries they wear the color white and the color red.
Yes,
So
yes.
of course there are some resemblance to color, like red is warm and blue is cold and all of this. But even this is different between many cultures. In English, there is an expression, you say, it's warm, it's warm-hearted, you know, it's something that made me happy, warm-hearted, because the experience cold, so warmth is something good. In Arabic, we have a different experience. We say, أثلج صدري. It made my heart iced, you know. So it means I'm happy. So it's totally different.
Yes.
So
It's
what
a
I would
different
say,
energy for
exactly,
people.
different energy, but the same feeling. I'm in a hot weather, so when I feel cold, this is a really good. Come on. So when it comes to colors, what I would say to your question is that of course, it has an effect on you, but put into consideration that it's a little bit subjective. If you feel that you wear a color and you like it and it gives you energy, stick with this, because this will work with you. Maybe someone else had a bad experience with the same color, or culturally it resembles something else. So we have to put this into consideration. But what I know from my studies, that it doesn't have a deep meaning embedded in our psychology as human beings. All of us doesn't give the same resemblance for all
Exactly,
of
and
us.
different people will perceive it differently, I think.
This is my point of view.
I know we have a few questions and I want to get to them. Please, would you mind coming to the microphone? It's the way they want to do it, just to keep everybody safe this time. Normally, we'd be running around with microphones to you. So if you can, please go to the microphone. There's another one up there afterwards, sir. Madam, please, yes.
Thank you. Now, I'm just going to say, first of all, I'm from Ireland. So
That's
it's
okay,
been
there's a few of us.
fabulous to meet Thomas on Zoom and Sherif. I think an awful lot of this problem about what's happening nowadays in narcissism, as you said, is really coming from Facebook. I think the more technology we have, the more difficult our life. This is not so much a question, it's more a statement.
Try and make it a shorter one for us.
Okay, I'll be very quick. I'm going to ask all of you there, have you read Brave New World, Aldous Huxley?
Yes.
And have you read 1984? It's not so much a question, it's a statement. I feel we are now in the middle of it. I think we are being turned into robots. I'm sorry. I'm a bit of a conspiracy theorist.
No, and this is your this is your opinion, and we value it because we want to understand it and we want to know it.
But that, I'm not going to keep on, but I really think this narcissism, this idea that me. It started so much in America, and as I say, I'm from Ireland. But I think this whole IT, technology, artificial intelligence and everything is actually destroying the world. And I challenge it. I think it's not a good thing. It's great to get in contact with people, but I think it's very destructive. And at the end of the day, the people who are really behind everything, it's money, ammunitions, oil. That's what's driving the world. If it can make money, fabulous.
Thomas, pick up on that.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Thank
no,
you.
Thomas, pick up on that too. And again, in terms of I think that lack of connectivity that, our world as we're in, and I think that's where we also have to just look at the fact that we have arrived here, and be it an evolution or be it whatever. But this is, people 20 years ago were looking back and saying, oh, the world's in a dreadful state. The world's in a state of chassis. What are we going to do? It's never going to work. But what can we do again in terms of being able to help each other, understand each other, and maybe come through this, because there are a lot of forces out there, I think, in terms of what our colleague was saying there, that are maybe against us.
Well, I grew up with TV, and when it was a bad TV program on, and I complained, my parents said, "Well, you can always turn it off. It is possible to switch channel or turn it off, or just go out and play football or whatever." The problem with social media these days is it's hard to be there and not get affected, because usually whatever tool we are using, if it's a digital one or if it's more physical one, regardless, it's not about the tool itself, it's about what the people are doing with it. However, now that we have developed social media algorithms that is actually driven by AI, artificial intelligence, it's no longer human beings who are sort of controlling it all together, even though humans were programming it to begin with. But still, the computers and the computer models are developing the systems all along, and they don't understand anything about human behaviors otherwise than what we told them to begin with. So I think some kind of machine technology might, I guess, take over in the future. But I think it has done so already. I think what the lady here referred to is we have to fight it, and narcissism, I think I agree with her that it has the origin overseas. I believe that. I think it started somewhere in the early 70s, to be honest. Social media, still, I recommend 30-day detox. You can always log in again. Just compare your own emotions. You can go back. Just try and see what happens when you don't act there.
It's so true. I think it is about taking that control. We have 5 minutes left. I have a lady with a question, please.
Hi. Yesterday we had here a top leader in social media, and I asked something. Unfortunately, the answer was not at all satisfying. So it was related to communication and to vision. This is for Thomas and also for you, gentlemen. I'm sorry, I don't know your name.
Sherif.
So, the problem is that social media, I am a pro, okay, is putting in a platform at that extreme accelerated that we are distorting the communication itself and the passing of the message. So there is no discussion, no language anymore. I spent today, this morning, 1 hour talking about it, and I was trying to see ourselves in the future. When Thomas said that some of your friends are quitting these platforms, narcissistic, of course, and I don't think that we are somehow obligated to be there. But in your experience as leader of communication, how you see this after your friends? It will be finally a rescuing of the core, of the essence of the communication? I live in Europe for 15 years, in Paris, now in UAE. I can see these two completely different rhythms. I am just seeing that some of the societies are too much focused in the sophistication of the medias and everything that is related to. I'm not saying that there is no traditional rescue or preserving the history of our way of communicating. So it's a very serious subject that probably we don't have the same
Okay, and
levels
exactly,
of
and when we
discussion.
have 4 minutes,
Please,
but
yeah,
we'll take that,
please tell me about it.
Both of you hold that thought, because I'm going to take this other question,
Yeah.
and we then put it all together. Please, madam, what did you want to ask us?
Hello, thank you so much, first of all, to Thomas and Sherif. I found it very interesting. So my question is to Thomas. I'm very interested. I've lived in Sweden. I'm British. I'm a red, yellow. So what I would like to know, Thomas, is do you think that certain nationalities have more blue people or more red people? Because I found here that I actually probably struggle a little bit more with all the 200 nationalities, but actually the people I probably get on with least are the Brits. So, quick question to you.
Super. Okay, and since we only have about 4 minutes, I'll take this as a closing question from you, Thomas, a closing answer, and also from Sherif. So I think it mixes nice in terms of the situation with social media, and again, then looking at all of these different nationalities and who gets on with who, and the reds and the red and yellow. You say you're more.
I'm a red, yellow.
Yes. So how can we, and I think I want you to give us a few words of wisdom and inspiration to close this off. How can we deal with all of this and actually come out better, happier, more productive people?
Shall
Thomas.
I answer this? Or?
Yes, Thomas.
Okay, quickly, so Sherif can also say something. Well, the last question, yes, it differs. Sherif mentioned this before, different cultures value different things. Of course, that's just the way it is. On an individual, so in Sweden we have this green blanket on top of everything. Germans are usually perceived as really blue, detail-oriented and controlling and all these things. Americans are usually yellowish, reddish maybe. So it's a cultural sort of filter on top of things. On an individual level, statistics are crystal clear. It's basically the same all over the world, but culture are sort of forming us. So that would be my answer to that question. And maybe Sherif would like to have a saying on this social media thing.
Yeah, and I think you've talked already on the social media side for us too. Sherif, we have to live in the world we live in, whether we like it or not, and we have to deal with the tools that we have at our disposal, and modern tools of communication involve a lot of technology. So it is about taking that control and that choice. But how can we, live, because we all ultimately want to live a better, happier, more productive life, and we have to struggle with these elements. What do you think can help people to make sure they can do that?
Well, when we speak about social media, at first we have to put into consideration that there is a personal responsibility, that you have to know that it has a psychological effect on you. When you read a lot of trolling, a lot of problems, a lot of people yelling at each other, a lot of conspiracy, a lot of these things leave a negative impact on you. So you have to balance this. If you look at my feed on Facebook, you will find that I'm subscribed to silly groups of kittens doing things and ducks and something like this, just to balance the amount of negativity I'm receiving from this website. So first of all, we have to understand that happiness is something we can make by our choice to select the inputs we receive from the world. Even there is an intervention called 3 good things. At the end of the day, think about 3 good things that happened well in the day. Don't focus on the problems you have to fix. Think of things that went well. Receiving positive information most of the time to overcome the negative effect of the negative ones is crucial to our happiness. And also don't focus on yourself, expand your influence to other people around you. This is part of happiness as well. Even if you can't change the world, just spread the seeds with the wind. Whatever will happen afterwards, it's not your responsibility. Just do what you have to do. There's a story that came to my mind right now. I think it's very important to mention. A few years ago, I received a message from a Syrian refugee. He was telling me about his deadly journey escaping from war, how he escaped from terrible things happening to his house, to his friends, to his family. And he was telling me about traveling through the desert, traveling in the sea in a rubber boat. And he told me that one of the things that he was keen to take from his home was one of my books.
How lovely, how wonderful.
Yeah, this really touched me.
Yeah.
This person, I haven't ever met him before. And if this is the only thing that I did through all of my books, I would die satisfied because
what a
of
lovely
this.
story.
So and by the way, the book's name was How to Become a Human.
Right.
So this is what I mean. Just do what you have to do and don't care about the consequences. Maybe some of your actions will affect someone who is not born yet. After your death, he will remember you by something. So this is what I want to say. Just do what you have to do and don't care about the results.
So we can all actually just get started then. And Thomas, perhaps I'll leave you just a quick closing word. We are going to close this up. In terms of it, it would appear like we have the different personalities out there. We're not all going to sit around and we're not all going to analyze each other, but would you say it's that each one of us can actually take that first step and that can actually help?
Absolutely. I totally agree with what Sherif is saying here. Actually, it's really good ending of this. Do the best you can, but at least do that.
And take that action. Thank you both so much. Indeed, when we look at,
Thank you.
you know, I think all of the tools in many ways, and we could have talked a lot more about it, but it is really about, I think, you know, us all finding a space where we're happier with each other and where we're not getting as irritated and we're not getting as intolerant, perhaps, whereby we are taking a little bit more time to look around us, to look at different people's circumstances, look at what's going on, and again, finding that inner happiness for ourselves and maybe not worrying about the other people too much. So once again, a big thanks to you. Thank you all so much for being with us. It's great to have you here, you know, in person, and of course for all of our viewers at home online, thank you all, of course, for being with us. We're delighted you were able to join us. A big thanks to our sponsors, the Investment Corporation of Dubai, the Dubai Department of Tourism and Commerce Marketing. I have a few quick thank yous to do to our title sponsor, Emirates Airline, our founding sponsor, Dubai Culture, and the session sponsors, as we just mentioned, the Investment Corporation and the Dubai Tourism. Parent organization, of course, Emirates Literature Foundation. And again, a big thank you to our great AV team. They kept us online. They kept the link looking very sharp. We didn't drop out. Thank you all so much to all of our volunteers who are here, the translators who are here. And again, just to a big, big thank you, Sherif Arafa, and also a huge thanks, of course, to Erickson. Thomas, thank you so much, and to Sherif.